Hello and welcome to Transportation Nation Podcast. My name is Lee Gentry, along with Caitlin Folks. We will be hosting this amazing program every single month, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, Caitlin, this is our inaugural show.
Yeah, it is. Very first episode. Very exciting.
It is very exciting. The purpose of the show today is to share stories, insights, and discussions that reflect Bennett, the trucking industry, and the values that drive its success.
We accomplish this by inviting experts to share their stories and perspectives on key subjects that matter in today's world.
Yes, very exciting. So during this podcast, we're going to talk about freight, faith, and family and how they affect our daily lives. We're going to touch around items around that's going on around the world and around our country. We want to touch our employees, clients, and individuals interested in transportation logistics. Blends of Bennett's stories, industry insights, safety, innovations, and probably a little controversy along the way, I think, Caitlin. So we're very blessed today to be here today to get this first one going. So we're going to get started. So joining us today for this very first episode is Mrs. Marcy Taylor and Mr. David Lowry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And thank you, Ms. Taylor, for allowing us to shoot this in your home. And the reason we did that is so you could understand who you are, because a lot of people know who you are, but some people may not. So it's just a nice, warm program here in your home. So thank you for letting us do it here.
Thank you, Lee. It's an honor to be here and to be on our very first podcast. I'm very excited about it.
It's a great opportunity. And I know I just called you Mrs. Taylor, but do you mind if I call you Marcy?
You certainly may. You've been doing it for like 40 years. So.
I think so. So thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Lowry, I'll just call you David.
Thanks. I know you, a lot of things was going through your mind right there in that split second, right?
There was, but I decided I wasn't going to go there. So anyway, Caitlin and I are excited about this being our first episode and you folks being with us. So let's get started. Okay. So take us back to the beginning. What inspired you to purchase George Bennett Motor Express 50 years ago?
Well, Lee, I always think back, and I've actually been thinking about it a lot here lately. David, Danny, and Lynette and I came to Georgia in 1971. We actually came in a semi-truck with all of our belongings in the back of a van, taking up about 10 feet. You remember that, David? Do you remember that trip?
I remember hanging on for dear life going over Mount Eagle for the first time. Yeah, I remember that in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was young.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was before the interstate was completed, I think.
Probably so.
You got to know we had never been out of Illinois. Oh. So it was a major trip for us. And we actually came here, moved into a mobile home in Jackson, Georgia. And I came to go to work for a trucking company, startup trucking company. Did not know the first thing about trucking. And so worked there, ended up marrying J.D. Garrison, who had also came to Georgia to start a little trucking company called Specialized Truck Service. And we had, in 1974, we actually had the opportunity to purchase a little company called George Bennett Truck Lines. Mr. Bennett was in bad health, and he had 15 trucks, 30 trailers, and 2 small contracts. And so just the opportunity came about, and we bought it on credit, $150,000. And that was a lot of money back in 1974. Yeah. Yeah, the kids were all in school. David and Danny and Lynette were in school, and we had, as I said, we had $500 in the bank account, and it would be difficult to do that today.
Yeah,
we had 2 small contracts. One was with Sunshine Biscuit in Columbus, Georgia, and we had some wonderful drivers. That's probably the best thing that came with buying George Bennett is the drivers that came along with it. And then we had a contract with Ford Motor Company in Tucker, Georgia, and Memphis, Tennessee. So we just started, and it was tough. You couldn't do it today. But it was very tough way to start. We had we kind of lived from one week to the next. But one of the things that I'm very proud of and over the last 50 years is, in all those years and when it was pretty lean at the beginning, we never missed payroll to any of our drivers. We made sure that they always got paid. And David and Danny and Lynette, when they got off school, they had to come to work. Do you remember that, David?
Oh, I remember child slave labor. I also remember we were so poor. Me and Danny and Lynette had to cut our pencils in 3 pieces. So we'd have something to go to school with. They always give me the eraser end. I never really quite understood that.
Well, I think I can understand that. Yeah, but it was, you know what? I look back on those years and it was tough, but it was good. It was, we had some great people that came to work with us, like Bill Ford and Barbara Phillips and wonderful drivers, just wonderful. Regina and
Grandma Dorothy.
And my mom did payroll back before there was computers. And so it was, I look back on it, it was tough, but it was good. We learned about the trucking industry. We learned it from the ground up. And I think it's what has helped us be successful today.
It is. I remember you telling a story about J.W. Jackson started with you in the very start.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he was a strong foundation. Willie Belliette, just mentioned a couple of drivers, Big C, they really were helping you build the foundation, especially when you were hauling Sunshine cookies.
They were.
And you said, talking about payroll, you never missed a payroll. And I remember you working through that, getting that check from the cookie company, making sure you could pay everybody. And you've instilled that in all of us at the company. We don't miss paying our driver. Never have and never will.
No, it's one of the most important things as part of our core values is that we're going to remain financially strong, and being financially strong, we never missed a payroll. We had to do some tough things and work all night a few times, but we never missed a payroll. And we actually were started in Knight's grocery store, which is a little old grocery store that's on Highway 81. And when David Lynn got old enough to come to work for us, he had one of the best offices in the building. And do you remember that, David?
Yeah, I remember I used to pick up truckload of tires to Columbus and pick up a check to get it back for the next day. And so we could make payroll. And yeah, you didn't know it was tough because you're just doing it.
You just did it.
Right.
Yeah, we remember when we got our first computer. It was a great big old computer. I even remember the first fax machine that was like this huge piece of
like a
equipment.
Big
yeah.
They were big back then.
Had this roller that rolled out permits and things. So, I look at it now and think about how far we've came in this industry, and it's amazing, and it's amazing to think about where this industry is going to go over the next few years.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a little bit later, talking about the industry and what's going on there. But yeah, it was a fun start, but a tough start, right?
Tough start. And then about the time that we finally got a bank to loan us money on our receivables, and we would go buy a trailer, we'd try to get it paid for or get the title and go borrow enough money to be able to get another trailer. And still that way, isn't it, David?
Some days.
Yeah.
Some days.
Yeah. But we finally got got trucks. We ended up with about 18 of our own trucks, and we sold them to our drivers. That's how a lot of drivers like JD or JW and some of the guys were able to have their own trucks, and the boys worked in the shop on the weekends working on those trucks, and then in 1981. we lost JD. He, terrible thing. But we lost him, and it was a time that we weren't sure what we were going to do. But we really didn't have much choice. We still didn't have any money, but we had a company, and we had some good people, and everybody just wanted to pull together and try to make it a go.
I know. You mentioned when I first came here, you mentioned that your mom was there, and after JD had passed away, that you had said to her, "Well, Mom, I'm going to give it all I can for a year, and if we don't make it, it won't because I didn't try."
Mm-hmm.
And I think your other comment was that you had to do it because you had so many people that were depending on this company to provide a living for their families.
That's right. And people were, we had such a great group of people, and everybody just pitched in. I think the biggest concern for us at that time was, there wasn't many women that was in our industry. And my biggest concern was whether the bank would trust us to be able to keep going, and whether or not our customers, we were a contract carrier back then, and whether or not that they would trust us. But everybody kind of took a wait and see, and so we just kept working.
After JD passed away was when you became the CEO of Bennett Motor Express, and I can't imagine you going through that difficult time and having to be strong for your family, but then also being strong for the company and becoming a CEO in a very male-dominated industry. And in that era of time, it's truckers, it's trucking, it's dirty, it's grit and grind. So can you share with us a little bit what that was like being a female and how you handled that and what it was just like?
Caitlin, I don't think we ever really thought about it in that way. We become a woman-owned business at that point. And, we would go and make sales calls, and I used to always had a male counterpart go with me, and sometimes customer wanted to talk to me. Sometimes they wanted to talk to the male counterpart, and it didn't matter to us. We just wanted the business. And I don't think we ever really thought about it.
Yeah, that's good. So you also touched a minute ago about the core values. Is there any specific core values that you'd like to share with us on how you built Bennett on and how really those values are still here till this day, stood the test of time?
Well, our core values is our foundation. It is what Bennett is built on. It's probably what kept us in business the last 50 years. And they're all important, and we try to make all our decisions by those core values. And sometimes it's not the most popular decision, but it's always the right decision. I think integrity is one of those. We have to do what we say, and we have to say what we do. And I think building trust is so important. We've got drivers that, just like J.W. Jackson, a lot of those earlier drivers, they were with us for years. And we still have a lot of drivers that's been with us for years and years. And same thing with customers. And so it's just making sure that you are who you say that you are, and you do what you say you'll do. And I think that Bennett does a great job of that. And we're a faith-based company. We know that we couldn't have been here for 50 years if it had not been for that. Yeah. We know God's always had his hand on us.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, very much so. I know adding to that is, we've been through some tough times in our company, and we've been in your office, and there's been times we've had to stop and pray for God to give us that direction. So it's nice to work for a company that's not ashamed that, that we stand on faith and we believe in God. We believe God has brought our blessings to us as an organization. So we're not ashamed of that. Marcia, it's been 50 years. Was there any time during these 50 years that you didn't think you were going to make it? And how did you push through that time?
Oh gosh, Lee. There's been so many times. If things would have just went one way or another, we might not have made it because Mitch at the time we were kind of on a shoestring. But, you have faith. You pray about it, you work, and you have faith. And we've came through some pretty rough times, but it's been good because we have a lot of great people.
Well, I was going to say, you've always mentioned that, it's not always about us or you, but it's about the people you've surrounded yourself with.
That's right.
And you've surrounded yourself with some amazing folks. So,
family, as I said, we're a family company. And you can ask David, it's not always easy to work with family, but it is a blessing. I always say it's not easy for children to work with their mama, and it's not easy for a mama to work with their children some days. So
I'd say it's easier on the backside of that comment.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's not just our family. Bennett's made up of tons of family. I mean, we have a lot of family that works at Bennett. In fact, one morning on a New breakfast, I'll never forget, this guy stood up and he said, well, one thing I've learned about Bennett since I've been here is you can't talk about anybody because they're probably related to whoever you're talking to.
That's true.
So that's probably true. So
yeah, it's very true. I know over the years, people really care about people here. It is really a family organization, and we've all had our times in the company where we've gone through tough times. And, I always say we're only a phone call away if you need us. I know if I needed you during the night, I could call you and you'd do what you could to help me. So it's nice to know that we work for a family company that truly cares about their people. And that's what people mention when you talk to them at Bennett, when they come to a symposium, when we open that meeting in prayer and we have the salute to the flag and they say, I've never been to a meeting where the company opened in prayer. So it's just nice to know our foundation's built around that.
Well, and we have fun. We got to have fun. You need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to, if you're going to be at work every day, you need to enjoy the people that you work with.
I agree.
And, Bennett's an entrepreneur company. You said we're made up of 14 companies. And I think the reason, and David Lynn's responsible for a lot of those companies.
He is.
And the reason that I think we're where we are is because we love an entrepreneurial spirit. We've always been that can-do company. Just get out and figure out, if an opportunity presented itself to us. We built Bennett on top of each company by finding customers that had a need. And we'll step up and say we can do that. I remember when we started our TT division, and David Lynn developed this trailer. Why don't you talk about that, David?
The TT trailer?
Yeah, and your trips back and forth across California. Now, this is an example of our can-do attitude.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back a step farther than that. The TT trailer was a pretty simple design. Putting some ramps on a step deck trailer to haul trucks because we had a customer with the need.
Yeah, but you helped design that.
Yeah, it morphed into something a little bit more, and was pretty unique for the time. As things catch on and competitors get in the market, it held pretty good for us for a while, right? Mm-hmm. One of the best things I think it did, besides giving us some good business to work, and at the time that revenue per mile was a lot better than what we was seeing and what we was doing in general commodity stuff. So it was pretty nice. It let us invest some money in some pretty cool equipment, but it also kind of gave us a pathway into drive away. If you remember, I was going in and seeing all these customers, with wheeled vehicles, trucks. Ford was probably that was our first one, right? Ford truck. And, and then as I started getting on into the body companies and stuff, everywhere I turned, I was running into drive away. It's like, well, that's nice. You come in here and say you can haul my trucks, but I'm used drive away services. And, and we come back, we talked about that, and, we had a good friend that that was already kind of in that with a company no longer around, R.L. Jeffries. Remember them I think out of Oklahoma or something. And Ed Scott was had a terminal for them in Sturgis, Michigan. And we was up there hauling trucks. He was in drive-away, so we just kind of, had a little pathway there to open that up and get going, to now, how many ever years later, that memory bank. I mean, that
memory bank's a little slow this morning.
No, how many ever years later now,
35 years.
Yeah, 35, 40 years, now being one of the largest drive-away companies in the nation, non-union.
Yep.
So, one thing seems like for us has always led into the next. And, we continue even to this day to try to sniff out the niche markets and that's okay for any entrepreneurs out there listening, to do that. Just have the backing to be able to invest, make the investments to do it and listen to the customers and what their needs are and, and take advantage of them and get it while you can.
And I think to be willing to step up and say, we can do that, even if you don't have a clue how you're going to do it, but you just get in there and figure it out.
That's how we got in the step deck business, wasn't it?
It was.
What was that? C.K. Crawford?
Yeah.
Traffic manager for Ford in Romulus, Michigan.
Yeah.
Asked JD how many step decks we had, and he said, well, how many you need? And he said, all you got. And I said, when do you want me here? And he had to come back home, and I'll never forget, went up to Ellenwood to Hobbs trailers. I mean, a lot of old timers will remember them. Went up there and bought a stack of Hobbs 40-foot step decks.
40 foot?
40-foot step decks. And we didn't even undeck them. We deadheaded to Michigan.
I think at the time when JD went up there, what do we have? Maybe 2 step decks?
We had none.
None? Yeah, I knew
no step decks at the time?
We had none.
Oh my goodness!
I know he went up there and sold that business, and there again, you just got to jump in there and figure it out.
Well, he saw the opportunity, right?
He did.
He saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started. Luckily, the problem they was having was loads to California, so it gave us some good paying runs and. And we put the owner operators on them step decks and started running to California and trip lease them back. And, it just had to make it work.
Yeah. And what that did is it gave us the opportunity to open up the West. We pretty much had just been in the South and the Midwest. And so it gave us the opportunity, and the West became a fourth of our overall business. We ended up with some wonderful agents, wonderful folks that were with us for many years.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I love that. I love that can-do attitude, and hearing how you built this company was really based on the needs of our customers. So I want to take a moment to say that last year, Bennett celebrated its 50th anniversary in business. And Grandma, you had a vision that we should write a book and I think some of us pushed it because the Bennett story and the company that y'all have built and how y'all got to Georgia, it's such an amazing story. And then hear y'all sharing how you've built this company on hard work and dedication and good people. And so, David, the TT trailer story that you just shared and some of the things y'all are talking about are mentioned here in this book. And so I guess for both of you, looking back at the last 50 years, what does it mean to you personally or professionally that Bennett's 50 years old and that you're here today celebrating that anniversary?
Do you want to go first?
I don't mind going first. I mean, does summing it up in one word make any sense? Like a blur?
Yeah,
that does make sense.
Yeah, it does.
I know, because that's what it feels like. I mean, you about have to ask me a question to say, oh yeah, we did this, and I can go on and on about it. But I think starting in starting the way we've started, and working the way we've had to work, over the years. It's just, you're stepping out of one fire into the next one, and all of them started because you're trying to take advantage of opportunities, right? And just making things happen. And a lot of times, not having a lot of money to do that with, you're having to figure it out the most economical way possible, without looking like it. That make any sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but I'll tell you that just, the support comes from so many different directions, and it don't matter, which direction you're going. I mean, it always seems like we've been fortunate and blessed with having that support, from, not just, say my support from the boss, right? For some harebrained idea that we've come up with, but, the drivers, the owner operators primarily, backing it up, or, an agent just saying, yeah, I can do that, and don't mind, jumping in there and going the extra mile and working the 70-hour weeks and, or 80 and, to support the needs of the driver out on the road, all the way through, admin, payroll, permits. I mean, you got to have it. Dispatchers. I mean,
and we had amazing agents, back then. We still do,
yeah.
but there were some, they were part of helping us get it off the ground.
That's, that was our foundation, right? That's what made it so strong, was having the right people out there. I mean, you mentioned that fax machine, I remember that thing. I mean, having ink from into your tips, your fingers up to your elbows, trying to figure it out. But we never could figure out how to fax a Tripoli's, at Tripoli's. I don't remember now. I cut thousands of them, but
right.
How many was it? 3 copies, 4 copies?
Something like 3 or 4 copies, something like that. Driver got one. We got one. He had an extra one.
Yeah, you had one for your files. I mean,
yes.
But you couldn't fax that darn thing. You had to be there.
We had to mail it back then. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to be there. There wasn't no overnights. There wasn't no cell phones to communicate. There was it was tough. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the listeners out here and viewers, there's probably an old timer or two out there in the middle of it that remembers them days. But, boy, I do, because I was in the middle of it, running all over the country, Remember how much time I spent in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, up there cutting trip leases and hiring trucks to run for one customer?
Yeah.
I mean, just running all over the place to get it done. But that's where the agents come into play, right? Danny Dyke and Lori up in at the Detroiter truck stop in Detroit, Michigan. I mean, they telling how many trip leases they cut out of that place. And then, of course, Lee Gentry over in Linwood, North Carolina. I think we wasn't really doing trip leases then, was we?
We were.
You did some trip leases?
Because I remember it took 2 drivers to bring the fax machine to my office. That's how big that fax machine was. So I had 2 guys had to bring it up to my office. That was insane.
That was right towards the end of us really going into the brokerage side, right? And getting away from the trip lease side of it.
I think so. And as we talk about how is trucking and logistics changed over the last 50 years. And I still look back when we were doing all this trip leasing, and Marcy did not want to talk about brokers. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember very well.
I remember us talking about all that, and she said, we're not brokering because we're not going to have somebody in a telephone booth. And we looked at you and said, well, David, she won't fire you. You're going to have to get brokers into the house because the industry's changing, right? The industry changed.
Yes, it was. And I don't remember exactly which. It might have been Fred Aletta that kind of ended up getting that. It was one of it was a CFO. We ain't had a whole lot of them over our career, but I had to go that route because she may not fire me, but I could be X'd. I have that X on me for a while, like not invited to Sunday dinners and some of that. So, I had to make my way to get it done.
Well, it changed over the years. So when you think about that, what's changed over the last 50 years? So back then, the agents had to do the trip leasing. We didn't have anything at the office. I remember Lynette and oh Lord, I just went blank. Lynette was in the office back then. Denise was in the office. There was a few of them that were so nice to us agents, helping us figure all that out and getting that stuff into the office. But that brokerage side of it was interesting.
Brokers had a really bad name.
They did
back then too.
Well, they wouldn't pay.
Yeah, they wouldn't pay, and I mean, we'd got stung by numerous brokers over the years, and trying to do it, and I think that was your biggest heartache, and most brokers was tacked to produce.
Yeah, it was, and I felt like that, as a trucking company, we had all the responsibility to make sure that the drivers out there were safe. Safety is priority one at Bennett. Make sure they were safe. Make sure that everything we did was the way it was supposed to be. And I looked at brokers and I said, well, they don't have any responsibility. They're just using our trucks. And so
And you didn't want that title on us, right?
No. And I also, as David Lynn said, a lot of brokers didn't have a very good name because they didn't always pay. So when we finally said, okay, we're going to give in, we're going to start brokering. And we wanted to make sure that if we were going to do it, we were going to be the best at it that we could possibly be, that we were going to make sure the drivers got paid. We were going to make sure that that everybody had their insurance. Anyway, we wanted to make sure everything was right. And so when we started, we tried to start it in the right way. And so today, golly, our brokerage is one of the larger parts of our company, and they do a wonderful job. They do a great job.
And it took time to get people out in the field used to not trip leasing, because that was the industry back then. We trip leased. And I remember when you started it, you had one person in brokerage that helped, and he was trying to help train and transition agents. Remember all that? It was just one. And now look at it. We have a main office at Bennett, who's pretty good size individuals in there. We have one in Florida, and
we probably have 50 brokers.
So
I don't know.
It's come a long ways.
It has,
and thank goodness for it too, because that's allowed us to be able to grow and really pull the take advantage of a lot of freight, a lot of volume, and be able to pull, what we always hope is the cream of the pickings off for our owner operators, so they've got a shot at a lot more volume of freight, because freight now is dynamic. I know we're going to get into all that stuff somewhere in this podcast, but the dynamic of the whole freight system now is just unbelievable. It's so different.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our 2-part first episode of Transportation Nation. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Together, we can move anything.